When I give you an upfront introduction, you'll realise that something could happen in your business. A key client could go, key people could go. If you're a retailer, they could close the road outside to do road works, which is only going to be for 4 weeks and turns into 6, 9, 12 months for all sorts of reasons. And there are many other things that I'll share in a moment. In October 3, 2002, 8 minutes past midnight, we got a call at home. And my wife got to the phone first because I'm not great at that time of night. It had woken us up and she said, "It's a call, the warehouse is on fire." I said, "Thank goodness I'm dreaming." She said, "You're not." So I jumped out of bed, as you would, and I always remember what my mother said: make sure you get changed before you go out. The temptation is always to grab the car keys, jump in the car and get going, because she said, "You'll never know what you may find." So my wife and I got changed, we got in the car, we drove there, and we got there and there was this trickle of smoke. At this point there was only 3 fire engines, a security guy and a young journalist who'd heard a bit about a fire on a 2-way radio. Within an hour the place was alight. This was our whole warehouse, roasting, office, training facility. It burnt for 3 days and burnt to the ground. We had 92 stores open, and this was really the whole hub, if you like. And even while the fire was raging, the next day someone had said to me, "Do you have a disaster recovery plan?" Well, of course, it's in the head. If it had been written down, it would have been inside, which is a problem in its own right. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you a few simple steps you can... this talk is not really all that long because it's actually quite simple, the things you need to do. And about 2 or 3 hours later, the fire guy said, "Well, you might as well go home, there's nothing you can do," which was probably an understatement. So we went home and we just laid on the bed and chatted on. We didn't get any sleep, as you could imagine. And then I said, "I need to go back at 5:30 because our first staff will arrive at 6 o'clock, which is our warehouse guys and our roasters, and I need to be there because I'd much rather be there and I talk to them than someone else." Not sure what I was going to say or what I would do, but I got back there at 5:30 and I thought to myself, today is going to be a different day. By this stage, I'd had a call from our courier who was doing all the deliveries around Sydney, Wollongong, Central Coast, Newcastle, to say, "I've heard about the story, we're really sort of worried about our jobs. I've got a van full of 2 new store opening stock. Do you want me to bring it back?" On the spur of the moment, I said, "No, we're going to open the 2 new stores while the fire's raging, because this will send a message that we're going to continue going," which is terrific because we've got nothing else. So I got there and there were 3 news helicopters. Journalists from every media you can conceive of, 31 fire engines, security, insurance, investigators, police. We'd blocked the main road. You got it. It was rent-a-crowd. And, you know, the 6 o'clock rolled around, and by this stage it was starting to appear first story on radio and on the morning television news programs. So the mobile phone was starting to ring from various people. I had to turn it off as I was talking to investigators and police and so on, and I'd turn it on and there'd be another 10 messages, and that kept growing because I just couldn't get to them. But at 6 o'clock our warehouse, or our roasters were the first to arrive, and they were really depressed when they saw it. They hadn't heard anything. I don't know what they were doing when they were driving there. And they felt, "Well, that's it, we've lost all our jobs." I said, "Where do you get an idea like that? We're not closing down." A great statement of faith. You've got to remain positive, even though you've got no idea what you're doing. And I said, "Guys, it's okay." These were our roasters. I said, "The coffee's all roasted." They didn't laugh. The cleaner arrived. We had a lady who came in not the warehouse, but the offices, because there are 2 levels. And I said, and she had a duster. So I said, "You're going to need a lot more than what you've got there." She didn't laugh. So I then thought I'd better get on to our key people. And those I could get, it's still early in the morning, I said, "You need to get here because we're going to need to divide the staff up, get them organised." A guy who knew very well, my partner and I knew from church, came along. He said, I heard it on the news, I'm here, I'm not moving until you use my office. You can set up operation in my office. Well, he was visionary because he had a tiny office and we had lots of people. So we actually set up, got the phone switched across, used our key people to start doing stuff. We started to meet in my own home, my neighbour's home, and other people who helped us legally and design-wise that our people met with. So for a couple of weeks we met everywhere and to rebuild the business. And there were many interviews and investigations and so on, and our sales went up 20%. People were coming into stores saying, we've seen you on the news, we're here to support you. Well, that's fantastic, but you could have waited a couple of weeks. But together, and this is part of getting the right people in the team, together they worked overnight and around the clock, and within 24 hours we were able to start roasting coffee because our green beans were stored elsewhere, our guys who knew the roasting specifications were still there, and my partner who was overseas at the time, and I didn't know which country, I was trying to get hold of their daughters. One's here, been here for 2 days, and in this session, been trying to get... I didn't have time to get on the phone and I didn't know where he was because he was overseas in the various countries finalising the next contracts on coffee with the growers. But anyway, finally, somewhere in the several calls, many I had, there was a call from him, but I just couldn't get a sufficient time because while you're trying to talk to one call, there was beep, beep, beep on the phone. You know, they were coming through at a ferocious rate with often encouragement and so on. But I learned a lot of lessons out of this. And, we still opened the 2 stores. Sales went up 20%. The staff and the franchisees worked together and we didn't have to close. 2 containers of stock arrived from overseas that we'd ordered, and I got a call from the customs people saying, we've got these 2 containers, would you like them delivered to the usual address? I said, do not bring them anywhere near here. Just store them somewhere, which you have to pay storage for, and we will tell you where we want them at the time comes. Someone loaned us warehouse space. A whole lot of people did stuff for us to rebuild the business overnight. But a disaster recovery will include many things. It's not just getting supply going. In fact, by the way, while the fire was raging the first day, a lady rang the number, got through to our franchising people and said, I've seen you on the news with the whole place alight. I want to inquire about franchising. Well, I thought that was optimistic. But there are a lot of optimistic people out there who get inspired rather than discouraged by these things.